Hi all you wonderful people, and welcome to Ask Mark, where I, Mark, a former dive instructor, answer your questions about snorkeling and scuba diving and stuff. If you have any particular questions, let me know down in the comments below. If you use the hashtag AskMark, it makes it a lot easier for me to find it, so add that at the beginning or the end of your question. But yeah, this week we are talking about Bühlmann versus RGBM. Really? Full disclosure, this is the first time that I read this. Yeah, that's going to be a fun topic to cover on Ask Mark. Harness help, I can do that, help you with your harnesses. Silicone care, thermal vests, instructor fees. It's been a while since I paid instructor fees. That's why I'm a former instructor. And handy accessories, I can definitely talk about those. Yeah, if you have any questions that you want me to elaborate on, let me know down in the comments below. Otherwise, let's jump into the first question. First question comes from James L18, and they ask, hashtag AskMark, soon to complete BZAC dive leader, 15 meters, congratulations, and then onto accelerated deco course with twins afterwards. Currently Sunto Eon Core user and confused on algorithms, Bühlmann versus RGBM 2. What is the difference? How will this affect my diving? Also, why the love for sheer water with hateful Sunto? Right, Bühlmann versus RGBM. So the first place to sort of get some interesting answers is to head down to the comments section, because I imagine they're going nuts at the moment. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to pop up a couple of videos up here. The first one is going to be a lecture from Dr. Simon Mitchell, and I can't remember who did the other one, but that's quite good. It sort of, because it depends on your sort of current, if you're going into dive leader, then chances are you know most of this, but for other people who are watching it who might be interested in getting into decompression theory, these two videos are going to be quite interesting. They're going to teach you the basics, and then they're going to elaborate onto the two different ways that you can focus on it. So inside of your Eon Core dive computer, you've got the Sunto fused RGBM 2, which as far as I'm aware is the most up-to-date version. It's actually 2. You get the kind of the best parts of the technical RGBM and then the full RGBM kind of merged into sort of one. And RGBM is the reduced gradient bubble model, which focuses more on the formation of bubbles and when they form. What it basically means is that, and it's been a long time since I've been down this rabbit hole, so correct me if I'm wrong, is that you tend to do more deeper stops, especially on long like deco dives. You tend to do deep stops before those bubbles that are sort of inside of your tissues, before they start to expand. You do stops deeper down, and then you get a more sort of natural, quicker ascent. A Bühlmann algorithm works, it focuses, instead of on bubbles, it focuses on supersaturation. So how much sort of excess gas is absorbed in certain tissues. So instead of focusing on the bubbles and minimizing sort of bubble formation, it's more about, yeah, so the excess gas, which is why you can get into gradient factors, and you can pick and choose the sort of numbers to really tailor your decompression algorithm. But it does it in an ever so slightly different way, which is why some divers call it a bend and mend style of algorithm, in that sometimes bubbles do form when you're sort of ascending, but you're spending more time at shallower depths doing longer stops at shallower depths instead of those deep stops. So it's two different ways of kind of doing the same thing. You're either going to be spending more time at depth or more time at shallower depths. Hopefully that makes sense. That's kind of how I understand it. But with Bühlmann, at least you can sort of tailor it with gradient factors. If you have a dive computer with gradient factors, you can sort of tweak it a little bit to your preference. Whereas like a Sunto RGBM is kind of, that is it. They're quite, I can't think of the words, but they're quite private with the RGBM. They've sort of given it to in the dive computers and whatnot, but I don't think they've actually published all the information about this is the complete algorithm, this is how it works, which makes some divers go, well, I don't want to use your planning software, I want to use my planning software, which I think puts some divers off. So but as a general rule, they're both perfectly fine. I used to use a Silicone RGBM dive computer when I was doing a lot of my teaching. I'm still here. I was perfectly fine. Multiple day divings as well, especially with the newer Fuse 2. That's quite good for that style of diving. You're getting the best of both worlds with the fused RGBM, especially the second version, which I think they made less conservative, I read somewhere. So that was one of the main complaints that you can still see on some dive forums, that Centaur are too conservative, but actually they understood that, and that's why they changed the fused RGBM and they made it the Fuse 2. I think they make it a little less conservative, but either way, they're designed to get you back to the surface safely. I think that's it. It's been a few years, yeah, since I've been down this rabbit hole, but as far as I'm aware, that's kind of the basic sort of difference. But yeah, definitely check out these two videos. They're going to spend a lot more time on it, and if you're interested in decompression theory, it's a great place to start. And yeah, it's definitely going to elaborate a lot more and a lot better than I can just on the spot. Gamer Nick asks, #AskMark, I've recently bought an XDEEP Zen backplate and wing, 4 dives used, and I'm finding 3 issues with it. Oh no. So firstly, all of the weight seems to pull down on my shoulders, making it incredibly painful to wear on the surface. And secondly, which might actually be causing the first, I can't seem to get enough purchase on my webbing to pull the belt tight at the surface. Are there any hacks I can use to be able to pull it with a bit more force and get a decent level of tightness on it? Also, for remove and replace on the units, getting hold of the crotch strap is a major pain in the backside. It always is. Any tips and advice? So the first thing is that I'm assuming that you've got the standard version, which isn't adjustable. You just have the 2-inch webbing straps and then a traditional buckle over the front. I use, and I think you can buy these separately. I think I bought these separately. You can get these like neoprene sleeves. I originally made some out of an old sort of section of neoprene that I had knocking around, but these are just much nicer. You can get these, yeah, neoprene sleeves. It's only like 3mm neoprene, but it goes over the 2-inch webbing over the top of your shoulders. And that just helps with any discomfort that you might have with shoulder straps, especially when you're up and around the surface. As far as getting the waistband tight and getting purchase, I'd lay on my back when I'm doing that kind of stuff. If you're doing remove and replace on the surface, if you're doing replace on the surface, it's kind of rare that you do that in real world scenarios, but it might be something that you do. So, but yeah, lie on your back like an otter. That's what I always used to teach my students. If you're doing it on your back, then you don't have your body weight and your weight belt kind of pulling you out and the buoyancy of the BCD pulling you up. So if you can sort of lie on top of the BCD, then you can get sort of full purchase of the straps and give it a good tug. But yeah, there's no real magic to it. You just have to sort of grab hold of that waistband and sort of pull that to one side, pull the buckle in the other direction, and then clamp it down. The crotch strap, yeah, they're quite tricky on the surface. In the water, it's a little bit easier. You can just do like a forward roll, pop your regulator in, and yeah, sort of roll forwards. You're not going to go anywhere if you've got the shoulder straps in place, and if you put the waistband on as well, just temporarily, it's not going anywhere. But yeah, just do a quick forward roll. That's going to sort of get that crotch strap between your legs. Failing that, on the Zen, you have the Y-shaped crotch strap as well. You should be able to reach behind, even with a straight crotch strap, find that D-ring, and then just grab hold of the strap and sort of pull it towards the end. Do a little between your legs and pull it up. But yeah, that's kind of how I do it on the surface. You kind of wait for the weight of that front D-ring to kind of hang down, and then you do have to do a bit of a reach and a grab. But otherwise, yeah, a forward roll should help you. Eric L says, "Hi Mark, great video, thanks. Maybe a subject for a future video, if not already answered, I don't know, maybe. On silicone neck or wrist seals on a dry suit, do you do specific regular maintenance? What if the suit is not going to be used for a 4 to 6 months period? Thanks, hashtag Ask Mark." Silicone's a lot easier than latex. I've come back to latex seals, and they've literally melted. You do need to take care of latex, but silicone is quite inert. It's quite tough, so I don't tend to do too much to them. One thing that I do tend to do is I tuck them inside of the suit so they're not protruding out, just because it's a bit fragile, and when you're rummaging around trying to get your bag out, it can get sort of caught on stuff, whereas if you tuck it in, it's a bit nicer. If it's longer periods, another thing that I often do is actually pop that ring out, because it just kind of allows that squished bit of silicone to just kind of relax a little bit, so it's not being pinched in one particular area, because a lot of the times you can get folds in that area. So it can be handy to actually pop that ring out, get the seal out, put that somewhere safe, sort of have a look around it. You can see where it's pinched in certain areas, just keep an eye on that, and that way when you then go to put them back in, put some silicone grease around the sealing surface, as it were, just so it glides in a bit easier, so it doesn't pinch. But yeah, they don't require as much. You don't have to like talc them and do everything that you have to, and use a specifically non-scented talc like you have to do with latex. Silicone is pretty tough, and it does last for a long time. But yeah, just have a look at them, make sure there are no nicks around any of the edges, and yeah, otherwise for long periods, yeah, I often sort of pop them out just to give them a bit of a rest, and also check them before the next dive. That way it gives me enough time to actually get a replacement before that one. I get ready for my next dive, you pull it on and the cuff seal just goes whoosh. Yeah. Whereas if you've done it like a day or so beforehand, where you're preparing your kit, you know that cuff seal is brand new and it's been fitted correctly. Adam Reed says, "Ask Mark, hey Mark." Hey Adam, I'm looking for, or I'm looking at thermal vests for under my dry suit. Yes, it is quite cold at the moment. The idea being to generate a little or a lot of warmth during long dives and deco stops. That's what they're there for. However, they are flipping expensive. Correct. And it's only something I want to buy once a year. The yellow grade 2 looks pretty sweet and offers up the ability to use it during the winter sports and walking the dog, as it's pretty compact. Yeah, it's basically a rash vest. However, at £900 it needs to be reliable. Yep. Well supported, safe and awesome. What are my options? Oh, wise one, Adam. Yeah, so that's a Thermolution. It's basically a rash vest, but with all of the heating coils on the back, as far as I'm aware. The yellow version has a wireless remote control. They are paired with a specific vest, because we had it with one where I think something was wrong with the transmitter, but then trying to get a new transmitter, you had to specifically pair it with the vest, and that was, I don't think it was overly complicated, but it's not as simple as just switching it on. You have to do it in a certain way, and maybe with a special key. I can't remember what it was, but don't lose the remote if you go down that. Yeah, works perfectly well. The only thing is that the batteries are on the inside, which I'm never a huge fan of. It's not the end of the world, but if something does happen, then I'd rather be able to physically disconnect the battery whilst I'm in the water. They are expensive. Any kind of electronics, as soon as you take it down to scuba diving depths, is going to be expensive with that waterproofing. Now we're adding on like wireless controllers with it as well. So yeah, it is fairly expensive, but it will do the job. I would recommend erring more towards an external battery. Money, what do you call it, as long as you can afford it, it is worth going for something like the was it BZ200 vest from Santee, because that has heating on the front and the back, and then you have that that sort of thermo valve. These are all extra things as well that you have to consider. You have to buy the vest, you have to buy the thermo valve, you have to buy the battery, so that's going to be more than £900 probably. But it is going to be more adaptable in the future, because if you then want to go down the route of heated gloves or a full-on heated undersuit, then you already have that thermo valve, you already have that sort of battery. Ammonite have just announced a very nice sort of thermo valve. It's very, very low profile. It's only about 22 mil or something. They're normally quite chunky, so you can have this huge inflator valve on your chest, but the new Ammonite one's quite low profile. That's something worth looking into. But yeah, no, the Thermolution Yellow 2 is perfectly fine. But yeah, just do be careful with the batteries and the transmitter itself. Do not lose that. It gets quite complicated if you need to replace it. Jared Dutton asks, hashtag Ask Mark, with all of the changes in professional diver fees, what is the current landscape? As I see, RAID has made it really affordable to be an instructor or a dive master and stay current with them. Are the rest going to move that way, in your opinion? Hopefully. One of the reasons why I'm not an instructor anymore is, yeah, the instructor fees. They're not ridiculous if you're an active instructor, but if you only want to do it like every now and then, it's quite expensive, and it can be quite tough to what do you call it, get those, earn that money back. But yeah, RAID are doing things very cleverly. They're not stuck in the past in any way. All of their materials are digital and all that kind of stuff. So they're very clever. They are very cutting edge. I mean, my instructor fees never went down. They only ever went up, obviously. I'm seeing a lot more instructors coming through SSI. They're doing quite well. So I think in a couple of years, we're probably going to see more of a change in sort of instructor fees and how things are done. So hopefully, for the sake of dive instructors out there, it's just going to make their lives a little bit easier. They're not going to have to sort of pick and choose, because there are some things where you have to renew a certain ticket, and it's like, well, I never use it, but I have to pay for this anyway. So yeah, for them, and if they're not full-time instructors, they just do it every now and then just to sort of earn an extra penny here and there. it would be a lot easier for them to just say, oh, you know what, yeah, I will sort of go for this because my instructor fees are sort of cheaper. Yeah, hopefully it can go down that route. I know they did things through the pandemic to make things a lot easier, because very few people were learning to dive, so they were worried that they were basically going to lose all sort of research fees. But it would be better if they could sort of say, you know what, we've listened. We've seen sort of like internet forums and what everyone's been saying about instructor fees and all that, and we've decided to sort of make it a little bit cheaper for you to do it, because yeah, every little bit starts to add up, and yeah, it does get quite expensive being an instructor. So unless you are sort of really cracking out the number of students, trying to earn a sort of decent living, and then you have that sort of taken away once a year, it's quite annoying. But yeah, hopefully I imagine they've got sort of teams on it at the moment who are looking into things and kind of saying, oh, you know what, we could afford to sort of dip it down a little bit. But ultimately it depends to who actually owns and who's pulling the strings higher up. So don't know, we'll see. Hugh Idiot, is that your name? Hugh asks, hashtag Ask Mark, I have basic equipment, ABC, so your mask fins and snorkels, the BCD, the regulators, and various suits. What do you recommend to refine it? Knives, line cutter, DSMB. What accessories are really useful and basically needed? My best purchase was a beanie. Yep. A real comfort between and after dives. I'm thinking of buying a poncho. Any suggestions or alternatives? Yeah, I mean, a DSMB, decent DSMB, and a spool is an essential piece of kit nowadays, because no matter where you are, it's just going to help you be seen on the surface, and a lot of places actually require you to have one. If you're going on a liverboard, then if you don't have one, you're going to have to rent one. I imagine you've got a dive computer because you said sort of ABCs and whatnot, but yeah, line cutters, nothing overly fancy, just something like a Easy Cuts trilobite or something. Simple, very quick and effective. You can still cut through quite thick stuff. I think I was cutting through like 10, 11 mil rope with that. It can be done. I wouldn't go too crazy with like big old Rambo knives or anything. Nowadays, a lot of it is just fishing line. You just need to sort of cut through. Yeah, DSMBs, thigh pockets, always handy. Just because it expands your storage, it makes things a lot easier. I'm not a huge fan of pockets on BCDs because I don't know whether it's just my shoulder motility or whatever, but I can't quite get my hands in there to physically sort of see and know what things are. So if it's on your thighs, it is much easier. So yeah, I use the Fourth Element ones. I love them to bits, plenty of space, and on my Fourth Element dry suit, of course, it has the same pockets, so it's the same size, it's the same layout, so you can have things organized inside of there. Ponchos, yeah, ponchos are really nice between dives because you can throw it on. I remember I was diving in Egypt must have been January, because it was around when they celebrate Christmas in January, and on the dive, it's fine, and but it's like the moment that you get out of the water, you start to take your wetsuit off, and that wind just takes all the heat out of you, and you don't want to get out of your wetsuit. And of course, I didn't have a poncho at the time, so yeah, it is nice to be able to throw that on. They're big, they're spacious. You can get things from like Fourth Element Storm, which is a relatively thin one. It protects you from the elements, but then you can go to Dry Robe, and they have like insulated ones, plenty of space. We have quite a few from I think it's Voited, surfing brand. Again, they're insulated. They're made for surfers, but of course it works perfectly fine for us scuba divers to get out of our wetsuits. But yeah, you're protected from the elements, you're insulated on the inside, so any heat that you're radiating out is being trapped, and they wick moisture away from you as well, so you can get changed, and you've got plenty of space on the inside. So yeah, a decent poncho is a good shout, especially if you're diving in colder climates. And that's it for Ask Mark. God, there was some tough ones today, especially that Bühlmann one. Yeah, if you are interested in decompression theory and learning a bit more about it, I've linked those two videos up there, hopefully. They're definitely worth a good watch, but do like sort of sit down and sort of spend some time with it. They don't go too much into like really complicated formulas or anything. They do break it down pretty easily, and they lead you into the more advanced, like complicated stuff. They'll go through all the foundations of sort of how gases move and all that kind of stuff inside different tissues, and then sort of up into decompression theory and different things. But yeah, that's a huge topic, and it's now more complicated because we have the RGBM, we have technical RGBM, we have the fused RGBM, we have the fused RGBM 2, I think that's it, but and yeah, I don't think they've published the full sort of algorithms in there, so actually getting definitive and they do it in slightly different ways, so trying to compare and contrast them is kind of tricky, but yeah, I definitely recommend sort of watching those two videos. any sort of products that I've mentioned today, there's going to be links down in the description below, so you can check them out. Don't forget to head over to simplyscuba.com. Thank you for watching, everybody. Again, if you've got any questions, comments, queries, or corrections, most importantly, if I did say something wrong about the algorithms, because it has been some time since I did all of that reading, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.